Alright, so we're about a week on from my last video, which I haven't posted yet, so I'll post them together. I don't know where I left that one off, but today we are just doing a simple oil change. The oil leak is still existent, but I mean, it's been there for a while, and my option is it looks as though I think it is coming from the front of the engine. It probably is coming from the crankshaft ventilation system. It's probably something to do with there not being an O-ring seating properly, and so it's just kind of spurting out the recirculating oil vapors, is my guess. That's the front end of the engine, and that requires taking off the intake manifold again. I mean, it's doable. It's not the hardest thing in the world. I just can't be asked. I would prefer to do other things, such as playing around with the Skyline. And for the sake of it just leaking a little bit of oil, it's not the end of the world. Engine still hanging out. There's the cover that I bought for it, which is cool. Brakes still need to happen. These I've never actually showed before. These are really groovy. These are just Nissan tie rod ends that are the correct length for the Skyline, not the lengthened ones that I've got in there. So they will match up with my new steering rack and my new lower control arms, which have not been lengthened. Anyway, so in terms of the transmission, interesting. So it's all good. It's all filled up. The interesting thing is that I might as well show you the dipstick, and the way that the measuring of how much you've got in there. It needs to be done when the car's running, in order to get a clear reading. And it's also got you can see the hot and cold there. It's got it expands a shitload. So it means that you can sometimes not get a very clear reading when you're on the hot, when you're on the cold. So they recommend testing it whilst it's running, whilst it's hot. So there was all sorts in terms of working out whether or not I had the right amount of fluid in there and all that sort of stuff. But we went through, that much fluid in terms of pumping it through to get it from black to red as it should be. So I mean, it's all good. It actually wasn't as bad as I'd first feared, in terms of how long it had been since its last change. I mean, it was still black, but it wasn't ridiculous. The most important thing was that when I took out the plug, there were no metal shavings. It's a magnetic plug in the gearbox in these, and there were no metal shavings. So great outcome there. Do need to triple check the level of the thing though, to make sure I put enough fluid in there. So it's a real pain in the ass in terms of doing that. If I had my time again, I would have been a hell of a lot more measured in the amount of fluid that I took out and then put back in. Reason being is the difference between the low and the high on that dipstick that I just showed you is 200 mils. Beg your pardon. Low and high on either the hot or cold setting, if you know what I mean. So, it's you really do need to be precise with these things, and I was a bit more blasé about it than I should have been. So that was my bad. I frankly I just did not put enough fluid in there on my first go, but no damage done, which is lucky. That is, I didn't, I took out a certain amount and then I didn't think about how much more I need to put in there. So I was running it low when I did my first little run around the block. And I also I'd forgotten that I needed, or I wasn't entirely aware that I needed to check it whilst it was running. And so, whilst it's running, it pumps all the stuff around the the gearbox, and so you'll get a plenty high reading when it's sitting idle, and then but when it's running, it won't give you that reading. It'll go right back down below the minimum. So anyway, I just remembered whilst talking that the other really fun part was there. You can see in here that guy there. That's the filter that I've got on the low pressure return line. This line here runs at 2 to 3 psi, so it's not, there's nothing crazy going on at all. But my God, I thought it almost screwed everything when I got that in there. It's really wedged in, and it's sitting right up against the radiator cowl, or I think that's what they call them. And so, God, when I so it's the right the hose is the right insert and outsert, and that's 3/8. So you know what I'm saying is that the hose went onto it just fine. These are the pieces that I had to cut out of it. You can see a couple of other little bits up there. But what happened was I cut a couple of pieces, and then when I went to try and put the damn thing in, there was so little give left in there, and I had this. If you can imagine, there's the piece that comes out down onto it. Then you've got your filter there. Then you've got this other bit that runs up, and it does a bit of a sort of a U up down into the top of the gearbox, feeds it back down in. That piece that I'd cut, which was that was kind of there as it was about to feed up and in. As the filter has these long outlets on it like that, and so the only way that I could get it in was it was bending the hose and putting a kink in it, because it was trying to go back up and in. And I was so sure that it was not going to be. It was the filter was too tall for the application. I should have got a shorter, stubbier one, as it turns out. But it's on and it's fine, and it's got clamps on it. But it's it's only just. It was very darn close to me having cut these transmission hoses and being in a really sticky situation. So very fortunate, very lucky that worked out there. Next time I go to a wrecker and I find one of these, which I will, in the near future, I am 110% going to get another one of these lines, or these hoses, this return hose here, because I've cut this one to hell, and I'm not very happy with it. It all is fine, no worries, sort of thing, but only freaking just. So we'll have to deal with that later. But anyway, oil change today. Otherwise, all good. Gonna get some more parts for the Skyline, I think. Just bits and bobs. Yeah, stay tuned.